Giannis Antetokounmpo reportedly wants Miami, and the Heat remain one of the favorites to land him. The surprising part is that not everyone inside the organization seems convinced it's a good idea. In fact, some Miami Heat players are reportedly revealing why playing alongside Giannis might create more problems than people realize. Let's get into it. The NBA draft is tomorrow. That's the self-imposed deadline. And right now, the most talked about player in basketball, a two-time MVP who spent 13 seasons in Milwaukee, is sitting at the center of the most chaotic trade sweepstakes of the 2026 offseason. His name is Giannis Antetokounmpo, and the Miami Heat want him badly. By all accounts, Miami should be considered the leader in the clubhouse. To make a trade for Giannis, as his time with the Bucks appears to be over, with the team looking to move the two-time MVP before or around the time of the NBA draft. ESPN's Bobby Marks put it plainly. When you look at Giannis, it's the superstar checklist of three things Miami has: a win-now player, and then it's the draft picks. I do think Miami right now has the best package out there. According to NBA reporter Jerry Wilfo, the Heat remain atop Giannis's trade wish list, even as the Boston Celtics have emerged in the running for the Milwaukee star. Miami is still his preferred destination, Wilfo confirmed, and yet despite Giannis wanting to go there, despite Miami having what insiders call the best package in the league, a deal isn't done. The gap between what the Heat are offering and what the Bucks are demanding has become a wall. ESPN's Brian Windhorst reiterated it. From what I'm told, he said, the Bucks have yet to receive an offer they're willing to accept for Giannis Antetokounmpo, which is somewhat mirroring what happened at the trade deadline last February. So this isn't new. The Bucks and Heat have been in a stalemate on a trade since the trade deadline last February. Months of phone calls, leaked packages, revised offers, and still no handshake. The Bucks' asking price for Antetokounmpo has been described as unrealistic by other teams. And on the other side, the Heat believe they have leverage and do not want to give up all their young players. For Giannis Antetokounmpo, with Miami viewing Bam Adebayo as completely untouchable in trade discussions, while the front office also hesitates to part ways with every young asset on the roster. So you've got an immovable force on one side and an unstoppable object on the other. Something has to give. The NBA world is bracing for a potentially seismic week, as Bucks co-owner Jimmy Haslam reported to the media that the franchise seeks to make a decision on Giannis before the NBA draft. And amid the outpouring of reports, it clearly looks like that decision will be to trade the 10-time All-Star. So the clock is ticking. And as the minutes count down, a second conversation has erupted, one that goes beyond the trade price. It asks a deeper question. Even if the Heat pull this off, can these players actually play together? That's where Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce walked in. Two Hall of Famers, two guys who know what it takes to build a championship team. And both of them went on record loudly, questioning whether Giannis in Miami even makes sense on the court. NBA legend Kevin Garnett thinks Miami would not be a good fit for Giannis's aspirations to win a title. He believes the Heat would not have a strong enough supporting cast for Giannis to contend if a blockbuster deal happens. I don't like him in Miami. I think if he goes from Milwaukee to Miami, that's a similar situation, Garnett said. A similar situation. As in same franchise player, same ceiling, different city. Garnett's former teammate Paul Pierce, who helped the Boston Celtics win the 2008 NBA title, agreed with the sentiment. I don't think that puts them in contention, Pierce said. So now you've got the Greek freak wanting out, Miami throwing everything at the wall, and two legends standing up and saying, hold on, slow down. And the reason they're saying that, it starts with one player who isn't going anywhere. Bam Adebayo. He's the centerpiece of this whole conversation. Bam Adebayo, a three-time All-Star, has not been part of any trade talks. For Giannis, Miami has made that non-negotiable. No Bam in any deal. He stays. Adebayo averaged 21 points and 10-0 rebounds per game last season as the Heat's go-to player. He's the franchise cornerstone, the untouchable. And that is exactly the problem, because Bam and Giannis on the same floor together is the kind of pairing that looks incredible on paper until you look at what it actually does to the spacing on the court. For most of Giannis's career, the Bucks surrounded him with centers who can space the floor with an adequate three-ball. Now, the Heat are trying to pair him with Bam Adebayo, a center who can shoot the long ball, but not as efficiently as one would like. It has the makings to be an incredibly clunky fit. That's not some random blogger. That's a basketball reality that multiple analysts, insiders, and yes, Hall of Famers are all pointing at independently. And it doesn't stop at Bam. This gets deeper, because the moment Miami trades for Giannis, the players who actually solve the spacing problem, the guys currently shooting it well from three, who give the Heat their perimeter identity, those are the exact players who leave in the deal. The roster that Giannis arrives to isn't the roster that was making Miami's offense work. We need to break this all the way down. Let's start from the top. The Giannis trade talks that have consumed the NBA this summer didn't materialize out of nowhere. They began with a report from Shams Charania that sent shockwaves through every front office in the league. The Milwaukee Bucks are open for business. Giannis, the two-time NBA MVP and 10-time All-Star, and the Bucks appear prepared to part ways after 13 triumphant seasons. 13 years, 1 championship in 2021, 2 MVPs, Defensive Player of the Year, and now the end of an era in Wisconsin. The Giannis situation is the talk of basketball right now, as the Heat and Boston Celtics continue to be aggressively linked to landing the 2-time MVP. While it might seem the Bucks' asking price is outrageous, one reporter highlighted the unprecedented nature of the franchise trading its 10-time All-Star, arguing that perhaps only Shaquille O'Neal's trade from the Los Angeles Lakers to the Heat in 2004 is a comparable scenario. Think about that. The last time a trade this big happened in Miami's direction, it ended with a parade down Biscayne Boulevard. Pat Riley knows that. That's why he's pushing. The Heat's pursuit of Giannis stretches back to ahead of the trade deadline in February, where reports say Miami made an offer similar to the trade package it has submitted now, one that the Bucks had some interest in. So Miami has been here before. They tabled an offer. Milwaukee blinked, then blinked back, and nothing happened. The cycle has been repeating for months. Now they're doing it again, only this time, the NBA draft clock is the ticking bomb in the room, as Miami is expected to have one of the best trade packages for Giannis across the entire league. A deal is expected to come soon, likely around the 2026 NBA draft. Much of the league hopes the Giannis situation is resolved before the draft so teams can proceed with other offseason business accordingly. Every front office in the NBA is in a holding pattern. Nobody wants to make their own moves until they know where Giannis lands, because wherever he goes reshapes the entire Eastern Conference power structure. 3 teams have emerged as serious suitors. Miami has the longest running involvement. Boston came in later, and their arrival spooked the Heat. And then Minnesota showed up as a wild card. ESPN's Ramona Shelburne reported that the Minnesota Timberwolves are also a serious contender for Giannis. 3 teams, 1 player, and a self-imposed deadline the Bucks set and refused to back down from. The pressure is real. Reports of the Celtics' interest in acquiring Giannis erupted in the second week of June, causing a lot of anxiety in hopeful Heat fans. However, according to Heat reporter Rob Murrows, Boston, unlike Miami, has some concerns about accelerating in its pursuit. Sources have indicated to me that the Celtics may not be pushing as aggressively as many expected, Murrows reported. So Boston is there, but maybe not all in. That keeps Miami in the driver's seat for now, but the price to stay there keeps climbing. Here's what Miami has actually put on the table. The Heat's long-running pursuit of Giannis appears to have evolved into 3 distinct trade frameworks, with Miami exploring several versions of a package centered around 2025 All-Star Tyler Herro, rookie center Kel'el Ware, and 6th Man of the Year runner-up Jaime Jaquez Jr. That's not small. That's the scaffolding of the team they've been building for years. The most the Heat are currently willing to offer for Giannis Antetokounmpo, per insider Evan Sidery: Tyler Herro, Kel'el Ware, Jaime Jaquez Jr., Nikola Jovic, the no 13 pick, and a future first-round pick, reported 3 days before the NBA draft, the internal deadline for negotiations. That's an all-star, a promising young center, the 6th Man of the Year runner-up, a developmental forward, a lottery pick, and a future pick on top. That's nearly the whole roster. It's been reported that the Heat would have to send out Kel'el Ware, Kasparas Jakuchionis, Jaime Jaquez Jr., Tyler Herro, and Pelle Larsson, along with a pile of picks. Does that leave enough talent for a championship contender? Giannis reportedly prefers Miami, but he has to remember the cautionary tale of Carmelo Anthony, who jockeyed for a trade to the Knicks and ended up as the centerpiece of a roster that didn't have enough talent left to compete. He got to the destination he was hoping for, and then spent years on a middling team that couldn't put the right pieces around him. That's the fear in a nutshell. Although observers have long viewed Miami as a frontrunner to land Giannis, a significant gap remains between what the Heat are willing to offer and what Milwaukee demands in return. In the latest reports, the Bucks are not budging, with Sidery adding that Milwaukee continues to look for more. The Bucks are holding firm on needing more from Miami, with their self-mandated draft day deadline only 3 days away, he said. So even after all those pieces, Milwaukee wants more. The unprecedented nature of this trade, the franchise moving, its 10-time All-Star, means the comparison to Shaq's departure from the Lakers isn't an exaggeration. The Bucks feel they can extract maximum value because no other superstar of this caliber has been on the trade block in modern NBA history. They're not wrong, and that leverage gives them patience that is making every Heat fan sweat. Sidery also reported that the Heat have made significant progress in trade talks, with the two teams negotiating about the possible protections of future picks. He also added that the Detroit Pistons could be involved as a third team, taking on Tyler Herro. The Bucks and Heat are making significant progress towards a Giannis Antetokounmpo trade being finished, he said. Progress. Not done, but progress. The Pistons, Herro, a three-team dance. This keeps getting more complicated. And that complexity is exactly why the fit question has exploded online, because the moment you strip Herro from this roster and ship him to Detroit, you're not just losing a shooter, you're removing the spine of Miami's offensive identity with Tyler Herro, Norman Powell, and Jaime Jaquez Jr. Leading the charge from beyond the perimeter. Miami finally found some consistency there. The Heat struggled to shoot consistently during the Jimmy Butler era as the lack of spacing was evident. In 2022-23, Miami finished 27th among all teams in three-point percentage, shooting just 34.4% as a unit asked. So they built something, slowly, painfully, through years of development and a shift in how they play, and now the plan is to burn it down and replace it all with one player. One dominant, brilliant, 31-year-old player who doesn't shoot threes. That's the trade. And the question isn't whether Giannis is great, he obviously is. The question is what Miami looks like on the other side of that deal, because Bam is staying, and Bam plus Giannis in. The paint together is where this whole thing gets thorny. Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce said the Heat should only move Bam Adebayo for a Giannis-level player, while doubting that a Giannis to Miami pairing actually creates a contender. Both pointed to a more established team, with Cleveland and Evan Mobley floated as a cleaner alternative. Two Hall of Famers, same conclusion, and they said it publicly on a platform with millions of listeners. That's not background noise, that's a signal. Garnett and Pierce said the Heat should not part with Bam for anything short of a Giannis-caliber return, and both questioned whether pairing the two-time MVP with Adebayo in Miami would actually push the franchise into title contention. They made the comments on their Ticket at the Truth podcast, part of the KG Certified brand, weighing in on one of the offseason's central questions. Two guys who built dynasty-level teams, two guys who know what championship construction looks like, and both of them see the same crack in Miami's plan. Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce say the Cavaliers, in a deal built around Evan Mobley, would be a stronger Giannis fit than the Heat. Not Miami, not Boston, Cleveland. A team with a young superstar who can actually space the floor, who gives Giannis the kind of center he's always thrived alongside. The contrast isn't subtle, it's the entire argument, and we need to understand why the floor spacing issue runs this deep. Now, here's the thing. Bam Adebayo didn't stay still this season. He worked on his game. He added something. And some analysts are arguing it changes everything about whether the Giannis fit works, but others are looking at the numbers and seeing something different. So, let's go there. Let's get into the Bam question, because it's the hinge point of this whole debate, and the answer determines whether Giannis in Miami is a dynasty or a disaster. Bam Adebayo is untouchable. That's been Miami's position from day one of these trade talks. According to league sources, Miami views Bam Adebayo as completely untouchable in trade discussions. And that makes sense on one level. He's their franchise player, their best defender, their best passer. You don't move Bam, except the problem is Bam's staying is exactly what has the basketball world asking the hardest questions about this trade. Known for his unmatched interior dominance, it has always made sense to surround Giannis with an array of perimeter shooters, especially in the front court. When he drives, having a reliable kick-out threat on the perimeter makes defenses pick their poison. Pairing him with a fellow big man who cannot shoot and instead also likes living in the lane would take away Giannis's impact on offense. That's the problem laid bare. Two paint-dominant players, one basketball, one lane. Defenses don't have to make choices when both stars are clogging the same zone. This isn't theory. It's been Giannis's whole career reality. He's almost never played with another center type who dominates the paint. The Bucks kept Brook Lopez as their traditional five because Lopez could shoot. He could stand on the perimeter and threaten defenses from the outside while Giannis bulldozed downhill. That balance is what made Milwaukee's offense hum. When Giannis drives, defenses won't put the same attention on Adebayo that they did with Lopez for so many years. A 35.7% three-point shooter in Milwaukee, Lopez kept defenses on their toes with his three-ball. Giannis thrived in lineups with a sharpshooting center, such as Bobby Portis and Brook Lopez. These players spaced the floor for Giannis, allowing him to work with space and dominate single coverages. Single coverages, that's the magic phrase. When a center threatens from the perimeter, the defense has to honor that. The center's defender can't just slide off and double-team Giannis in the lane. Giannis gets one-on-one, and one-on-one with Giannis is a nightmare for any defender alive. Now flip that and run it with Bam. Bam at 31.8% from three is not the type of spacing that can help take pressure off of Giannis. When Giannis drives, defenses won't put the same attention on Adebayo that they did with Lopez. So they can sag, they can load up the paint, they can pack the lane with two defenders and dare Giannis to pull up from mid-range or fire a contested jumper. That's not a game Giannis has ever wanted to play. His whole offensive system is built on getting downhill uncontested. The spacing on the floor could become an issue. The way the game is played today, having two stars who are not elite shooters could make it more difficult for the rest of the roster to create offense. And this isn't just Bam. It's about the entire paint area being crowded by both of your primary stars simultaneously. When your two best players both want to operate in the same zip code, you've handed the defense a blueprint for shutting you down. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Because Bam didn't just stand still this offseason. He made a bet, and it was a significant one. Adebayo has taken a massive leap in terms of shooting in the past season. Last offseason, he expanded his game to include three-point shooting, a development heavily encouraged by the Heat organization to diversify their offense. In the 2025-26 NBA campaign, Adebayo made a career-high 127 three-pointers. Career-high. By a massive margin, it was a massive jump from his previous seasons in his first 8 years. In the league, he only made 102 three-pointers total. So in one season, he made more threes than he had in his entire career up. To that point, that's not a small development. That's a franchise-altering evolution, if it holds, and some analysts are pointing at that stat and saying the fit concern is overblown, that Bam has already started solving the problem the doubters are raising. But is that the right read? Let's look at the actual number. While he attempted 400 threes, he only made 127 of them, a lowly 31.8%. 31.8%, below the league average of 36%. That's not the benchmark of a reliable perimeter shooter. That's a volume shooter who happened to go up with a lot of threes. And at 31.8%, NBA defenses will make a calculated decision. They'll leave Bam open and collapse on Giannis every single time. Unless he becomes a dead-eye perimeter threat this summer, defenses will focus on Giannis and dare Adebayo to fire away. They will live with that 31.8% success rate. So the question becomes, is Bam's three-point shooting actually at a level that threatens defenses? Or is it just enough volume to create a false narrative? There's a big difference between shooting 42% from three and shooting 31.81 makes defenses choose. One gives defenses a free pass. And right now, Bam's number is the kind that defensive coordinators circle on their scouting report and say, let him shoot. We'll take that every time. Adebayo, did attempt 5 three-pointers per game last season, nearly double his previous career high, but he only made 31 8%, and most defenses are going to pack the paint when both he and Giannis are on the floor. So even with the expanded role, even with the increased volume, the floor still closes in, because Giannis doesn't shoot threes either. Giannis has essentially given up any pretense of becoming a three-point shooter. He's averaged a fraction of an attempt per game from deep. For years now, defenses don't guard him from the perimeter. They wait for him at the rim. Now put those two players together, Giannis and Bam, both living in the paint, both drawing their defenders in close. Having two stars who are not elite shooters could make it more difficult for the rest of the roster to create offense. Teams could pack the paint and build a wall around Giannis, daring both to shoot consistently from three. It becomes traffic, it becomes congestion, and the players around them, who are supposed to be the shooters, the spacers, those are exactly the players Miami is shipping out in the trade. It doesn't help that a good chunk of Miami's current shooting, coming from players like Tyler Herro and Kel'el Ware, would be heading to Milwaukee in this transaction, making things even tougher. So you lose your best shooter in Herro. You lose Kel'el Ware, who was Miami's solution to the Bam spacing problem. You lose Jaquez Jr., who was a perimeter threat off the bench, and then you pair two paint-dominant players together and wonder why the offense doesn't flow. The math is straightforward. Bam Adebayo has always created spacing concerns for Miami, but Ware's shooting ability makes him the perfect fit alongside him. That sentence is the whole problem in one line. Ware was the fix for Bam's spacing issue. Take away Ware to get Giannis, and now you've solved one problem by creating a bigger one. You've removed the Band-Aid and replaced it with nothing. And the wound is still there, except now the player you added also needs the same treatment. Although many Heat fans might not want to admit it, Herro and Ware in the starting five is a better fit for Miami's current roster than trading for Giannis would be. It's difficult to argue that the two-time MVP wouldn't raise Miami's overall ceiling. He would make the Heat significantly more talented on paper. But the concern isn't the talent, it's the fit. Unless the Heat are immediately able to fix spacing, concerns a blockbuster move for Giannis would create many flaws. And here's the part that stings the most for Miami fans who've been dreaming of this deal for 2+ years. The Heat haven't had great spacing historically. This isn't a new problem. The Heat struggled to shoot consistently during the Jimmy Butler era, as the lack of spacing was evident. In 2022-23, Miami finished 27th among all teams in three-point percentage, shooting just 34.4% as a unit. 27th. They somehow made two finals runs during that stretch on the back of culture, defense, and Jimmy Butler's will. But it cost them when it counted most. Pairing between Bam and Giannis would limit Miami's spacing even more than it did during the Butler era. More than Butler. The Butler era, the one that had the entire league wondering how a team shooting 34% from three was making the NBA Finals. If Giannis Bam is worse than that era's spacing, then what does the offense actually look like? What do those possessions feel like against a team like Boston, who spaces the floor perfectly with 5 shooters at any given time? A Giannis Adebayo duo would provide elite versatility, defense, and rim protection, as both players are clearly all defense caliber. They would dominate the paint on both ends of the floor, and Giannis is excellent at generating transition offense, which is crucial for fast break opportunities. However, the offensive output they provide in the paint won't outweigh the output they'd be taking away from the perimeter. A pairing between the two would limit Miami's spacing even more than it did during the Butler era. So the defense would be terrifying. 2 all-defense caliber players in the same front court. Opposing teams would cringe every time they crossed half court. The transition offense would be elite. Giannis is one of the best transition players in the NBA, and his ability to leverage his strength and speed to get downhill will open up the floor for the Heat in a way they haven't seen since they had LeBron James. Bam is one of the most athletic bigs in the NBA, and pairing him with Giannis would give Miami constant opportunities to push the pace after defensive stops, end-to-end in space, in the open court. This duo would be lethal. The problem is the half court, the set offense, the moments when the Defense is set and waiting, and they've scouted what you do in those possessions, the decisive ones in Game 7 in the fourth quarter, when the shot clock is running down and you need a bucket. What does Miami call Giannis post-up while Bam stands on the elbow? Pick and roll, where both rollmen go to the same spot. That's why it's essential that the Heat fill out their bench with as much front court shooting as possible. But that bench, they're trading it all away. The fit between Bam and Giannis may not be perfect, but the rule is you trade for a superstar and figure out the rest later. That's been Pat Riley's answer to everything. And he's not wrong. That talent wins. He's done it before, but figure it out later is only a good plan if you have the roster depth and flexibility to actually figure it out. And Miami is starting that conversation with almost nothing left after the trade. The question isn't whether Giannis is worth it. The question is whether the Heat can survive the surgery. The biggest question for the Heat, besides whether Milwaukee will actually say yes, is whether they can keep enough talent to keep Giannis happy. Because there's a cautionary tale Giannis himself has probably studied. He watched what happened to Carmelo in New York. He watched Kevin Durant in Brooklyn when the injuries hit and the roster crumbled. He watched how quickly a paper-perfect superstar trade can turn into an anchor. Plenty has been speculated about how willing Giannis would be to sign a contract extension with whichever team he's traded to. Many reports have stated he would be open to committing long-term to the Heat, but not to a team like Portland. The willingness to extend in Miami is real, but willingness has conditions. If the roster is bare, if the spacing is broken, if they're getting bounced in the second round 2 years in a row, how long does that willingness last before it curdles into frustration? Miami's front office knows this. That's why they're being careful about how much they surrender in the package. But here's the tension. The Bucks won't accept careful. They want maximum. And the difference between what Miami calls maximum and what Milwaukee calls maximum is the wall. This whole thing keeps hitting. The players Miami won't give up are the exact players that would solve the problems everyone is pointing at. It's a circle that doesn't have a clean exit. And while Pat Riley tries to find that exit, the basketball conversation has moved from will the trade happen to does the trade even work if it does. Neither Garnett nor Pierce would move Bam for less than a superstar return, and both are skeptical of the Miami fit for Giannis. In their view, only a player on Giannis's tier would justify moving Bam, and they question whether even that pairing works in Miami. So to summarize, the two Hall of Famers are saying don't move Bam for anyone except a top 5 player. And separately, they're saying a top 5 player next to Bam still might not work. That's a paradox, a real one. And Miami is living inside it right now. The broader point Garnett and Pierce are hammering home is one about championship construction. It's not just about getting the best players. It's about getting the right players in the right configuration. The Bucks tried to build a dynasty around Giannis for over a decade. They won once when they had the exact right supporting cast, the exact right spacing, the exact right defensive scheme. Remove any one of those pieces, and that window closes. Garnett and Pierce questioned whether pairing the two-time MVP with Adebayo in Miami would actually push the franchise into title contention. That's the conversation Miami has to have internally, not just do we want Giannis. That answer has been yes for 2 years, but what do we have left when we get him? Because the roster that greets him through the door at Kaseya Center might look nothing like the team that was competing for a playoff spot this spring. And the ghosts of failed superstar trades are hovering over every conversation about this deal. The Carmelo trade, the Kevin Garnett-era Nets, Harden in Brooklyn championships aren't guaranteed by proximity to greatness. They're built by construction, the right pieces, the right fit, the right plan. Let's stop talking about it in the abstract and actually look at what Miami's roster looks like on the other side of this deal. Because if the Bucks get what they're asking for, the Heat that show up to training camp in September won't be recognizable. According to Sports Illustrated's Alex Golden, the Heat may have to part ways with as many as 4 key players to land Giannis. 4 key players. That's not depth. That's the team. Here's what leaves in the most likely scenario. Tyler Herro, the all-star, the guy who spent 3 years becoming one of the more reliable mid-range and three-point threats in the Eastern Conference. He gets rerouted. Their Eastern Conference rival Detroit Pistons could be involved as a third team, which would give them Tyler Herro. Herro to Detroit. The Bucks have made it clear they do not want the large salaries of Tyler Herro or Nikola Jovic, so Herro can't even go to Milwaukee. He has to be moved separately. That's a three-team deal, 3 moving parts. Then Kelly Ware goes to Milwaukee, the 22-year-old center who became Miami's most fascinating young development project. At 6'10", Jovic remains one of Miami's most intriguing developmental pieces because of his ability to handle the ball, facilitate offense, and play multiple front court positions. He goes to Jaime Jaquez Jr., the 6th Man of the Year runner-up. Herro earned his first All-Star selection in 2025, while Ware emerged as one of the NBA's most promising young centers, and Jaquez finished as the runner-up for 6th Man of the Year. Gone. So after the dust settles, what's left? Giannis. Bam. Bam's new three-point shot, some second-round picks, and whoever Miami can find at the minimum to fill the remaining roster spots. Another concern that comes to mind is around roster depth. If the Heat acquire Giannis, they will have to deplete their roster and could have trouble building a competitive roster around them. The trade would include Tyler Herro and Kelly Ware, but to match the salaries, they would likely also include Jaime Jaquez and one other player. Losing the likes of Jaquez Jr., Ware, and others means that the Heat will have thin depth, which makes it paramount that Herro is moved if Giannis comes. And then you need Herro to be moved. Well, not just dumped for salary relief, but traded in a way that brings back useful pieces, because if you move Herro to Detroit for nothing, Miami comes out of this with Giannis, Bam, and a skeleton crew that's not a championship team. That's an all-star game duo in a league uniform. To be fair, this hypothetical Heat rotation with Giannis looks more competitive than what the Knicks had around Carmelo, assuming they can re-sign Norman Powell. The Heat have a strong backcourt built around Powell's scoring and Mitchell's relentless defense at the point of attack. So there are pieces: Powell, Javonte Smart potentially, Mitchell, who was a defensive anchor this past season. But 3 role players and 2 superstars don't win a ring against a Boston team with 5 quality starters and championship experience. In any chance that the Heat keeps Herro and brings in Giannis, the franchise will have a solid core to compete, but it will be an expensive one to control. That's the alternative scenario, maybe. The Bucks accept a package where Herro isn't shipped to a third team. Maybe he stays in Miami alongside Giannis. Giannis, 31, is clearly a win-now piece and will be joining the Heat while still commanding a significant contract, 2 max contracts, Herro's deal, Bam's extension, that's 4. Big salaries before you filled a single roster spot around them. The luxury tax implications would be staggering. The Heat would be operating so far above the cap line that every subsequent move, every mid-season addition, every minimum contract signing would trigger massive penalties. Miami's ownership has shown a willingness to spend, but there's a limit to every organization's patience with catastrophic tax bills. And if Giannis is 31 with a supermax deal, the window is not as long as it seems. You've got maybe 3 or 4 years at peak Giannis, 3 or 4 shots at a ring, with a team that might be missing the pieces to actually capitalize, and the Bucks keep looking at the tickets and saying they want cash instead. ESPN's Windhorst reiterated that the Bucks have yet to receive an offer they're willing to accept for Giannis, which is somewhat mirroring what happened at the trade deadline last February of the Heat and Celtics, the top 2 reported frontrunners. Only Boston fits that billing, a team that can offer an established superstar in a deal. Boston could theoretically put Jaylen Brown in a package. That's a proven star. That's the kind of asset that changes the calculus for Milwaukee. Miami can't match that level of established star power without including Bam, and Bam isn't on the table. So where does that leave Pat Riley in a game of chess, where his best piece is the one he won't move? Many reports have stated Giannis would be open to committing long-term to the Heat, but not to a team like the Portland Trail Blazers. Portland was willing to offer more in some ways. They had more assets, younger players, more flexibility. But Giannis didn't want to go there. He wants Miami specifically. That preference should, in theory, give Riley leverage. But Milwaukee has made clear they're not giving Giannis a discount just because he'd rather live on South Beach. The business of basketball doesn't work on player preferences alone. If Pat Riley and the Heat really want to get a deal done, and the Bucks are willing to take back whatever they can offer, Miami should be the betting favorite to land Giannis. But that willing to take whatever they can offer part is the loaded phrase. Milwaukee isn't willing to take whatever. They know what they have, and they're going to wring every dollar of value out of it. Which brings us to the third team in the room, the Celtics, and what their involvement actually does to Miami's position. For weeks, it appeared no team would challenge the Heat. In trading for Giannis, only loose speculation connected him to the Celtics. But more recently, multiple reports indicated the Celtics' legitimate interest, starting with NBA insider Jake Fisher reporting that Miami had grown, worried Boston would swoop in and steal Giannis. That fear is real, and it's strategic. The Celtics' arrival in this race isn't just a competing offer. It's leverage for Milwaukee. Now they can play Miami and Boston off each other, drive the price higher, force Miami to decide, give us more, or watch your preferred player go to your rival. It has come down to Miami and Boston, though ESPN's Ramona Shelburne reported that the Minnesota Timberwolves are also a serious contender. 3 teams, each with different asset profiles, each offering the Bucks something different. The Wolves could offer youth and picks, but Giannis reportedly doesn't want to go there, or at least not with the same enthusiasm as Miami. Boston could offer star-level assets. Miami can offer the player's preference, plus a strong package. This is a 3-way auction, and the Bucks are enjoying every second of it. And underneath all of it, the basketball question is still waiting. Because regardless of which team wins this sweepstakes, the question of what the roster looks like on the other side is the one that determines whether winning the Giannis lottery is actually a victory. For Miami specifically, that question cuts deepest, because they're the team where Bam stays, where the spacing is already a concern, where the trade cost strips away the very players who were solving that concern. The next piece of this story is about the players who've already spoken up through their performance, through their fits, about what adding Giannis actually means for the locker room. Tyler Herro has been the conversation's center of gravity for months. He's the player whose name appears in every leaked package, every proposed deal, every version of the framework that has Miami trading for Giannis. Miami has maintained the league's most consistent interest in acquiring the 2-time MVP and has explored several versions of a package centered around 2025 All-Star Tyler Herro. His name, his contract, his All-Star status, they're all pulling weight. In this negotiation simultaneously, Herro earned his first All-Star selection this past February for a player who spent the first few years of his career being questioned, doubted, called a luxury player. That selection was validation, and now the price of landing Giannis is in large part him. The Heat reportedly tabled an offer before the trade deadline, and it was a strong proposal centered on Tyler Herro. He's been the centerpiece of every version of this deal Miami has floated, and the Bucks keep saying yeah, but we don't want his salary, so he gets rerouted. The Bucks have made it clear they do not want the large salaries of Tyler Herro or Nikola Jovic. The recent news is that Detroit will be a potential landing spot for Tyler Herro, which would then give the Bucks even more assets to discuss. Detroit is the third team. The Pistons facilitate by absorbing Herro's contract. That takes Herro off the Heat's books, frees up the salary structure for Milwaukee to accept the deal, and gives the Pistons a shooter who, divorced from the spacing nightmare of the Giannis-Bam frontcourt, would actually thrive in a more balanced environment. Here's the brutal irony of the Herro to Detroit scenario. Tyler Herro leaving Miami for the Pistons might actually be the best basketball outcome for Tyler Herro, not because Miami is bad, but because if Herro stays in Miami alongside Giannis and Bam, with the spacing already compromised, his effectiveness as a shooter gets diminished too. Defenses pack the paint for Giannis. Herro's catch-and-shoot opportunities shrink. The pull-up game still works, but the rhythm and flow of an offense built around his shooting gets warped. In Detroit, with Cade Cunningham running the point and a team built around spacing and guard play, Herro might be the best player on the court every night. He gets the ball in his spots. He gets the gravity that his shooting generates. He becomes a star in his own right. Miami trades the man and ships him to exactly The situation where he can maximize his value while using his contract as the lubricant that makes the Giannis machine work. That's the deal. And it's either brilliant or devastating, depending on what Herro does next. But it means the Heat lose him. Really lose him. Not just trade him as a transaction, lose him as a cornerstone of what they built over the past 3 seasons. The Heat have made some key improvements over the past few years that have led to their perimeter shooting becoming significantly better. Herro has always been an elite shooter, constantly in the conversation for best in the league. Best in the league. That quality leaves, and what comes in return is a player who can't shoot threes, but can do virtually everything else. Now let's talk about Kel'el Ware, because Ware is the piece in this deal that gets the least attention, but might matter the most to Miami's long-term ceiling. Miami has explored several versions of a package centered around Herro. Ware has emerged as one of the NBA's most promising young centers, while Jaquez finished as the runner-up for 6th Man of the Year. Ware is one of the most promising young centers in the NBA at 22 on a rookie contract. The Bucks want him, and why wouldn't they? In this trade, Milwaukee gains a heap of young talent, including 3 first-round picks and a 22-year-old center in Ware, and Miami raises its ceiling considerably. That's the deal from both sides simultaneously. Miami gets the superstar they've been chasing for 2 years. The Bucks get the young center who could be their version of Brook Lopez for the next half-decade. Both teams win, in theory. But what does Ware's departure actually mean for how Miami plays around Giannis? Bam Adebayo has always created spacing concerns for Miami, but Ware's shooting ability makes him the perfect fit alongside him. Ware was solving the exact problem that the Giannis pairing creates. He can shoot. He can stretch the floor from center. He's 6'10" and growing into an elite offensive weapon. In a world where Ware stays in Miami, the Bam spacing problem gets managed because Ware can slide to power forward and space the floor while Bam posts up. Now imagine that lineup with Giannis too. That's actually frightening for opponents. But that's not the world this trade creates. It's been reported that the Heat would have to send out Kel'el Ware, Kasparas Giannis, Jaime Jaquez Jr., Tyler Herro, and Pelle Larsson, along with a pile of picks. All of them, the young guys who were supposed to be the future, the depth, the spacing solution, all of them go to Milwaukee. And Miami gets Giannis, who at 31 has a narrowing window to win, and Bam, who is their foundation, but creates the very problems we've been discussing for the past 20 minutes. Jaime Jaquez Jr. is another loss that doesn't get the attention it deserves. Jaquez finished as the runner-up for 6th Man of the Year, a player voted by coaches and scouts as the 2nd best bench contributor in the entire NBA. That's not a role player. That's a genuine two-way piece who brings defensive intensity, perimeter shooting off the bench, and the kind of culture fit the Heat have built their identity around. He comes off the bench and gives you 20 minutes of exactly what the starting 5 can't always provide. And he goes to Milwaukee in this deal. Jaime Jaquez Jr., Nikola Jovic, Pelle Larsson, and Kasparas Giannis have all reportedly surfaced in discussions, though the Heat appear determined to draw a line somewhere. That somewhere is the dispute. The Heat want to keep at least one of Giannis or Larsson, because they understand that after you strip Herro, Ware, and Jaquez from the roster, the only shooting that remains has to come from somewhere. And those 2 young guards represent the last layer of the depth that makes the roster functional. At his age and on a cost-controlled rookie contract, Giannis could appeal to Milwaukee as a developmental guard capable of growing into a larger role. Including him would also allow Miami to preserve some of its established rotational pieces while still presenting the Bucks with another attractive young asset. So the negotiation over Giannis specifically is really a negotiation over whether Miami can survive this trade with any shooting depth whatsoever. If Giannis goes, the roster that surrounds Giannis and Bam is frighteningly thin on perimeter production. Pelle Larsson of the Miami Heat goes to the basket against the Washington Wizards, one of the lesser discussed but potentially included players in the deal. Larsson, another young guard who provides that bench shooting and defensive versatility every piece Miami has built toward becomes a potential chip in this negotiation. the farm system they've assembled to avoid the disaster of having no young talent. All of it is on the table. All of it is potentially going to Milwaukee in exchange for one man. And that one man, Giannis, is 31 years old. His prime is now. Not in 3 years when Giannis matures. Not when the rookies they might be able to draft in 2027 develop now. The window is open, and Riley's entire philosophy has always been that you climb through windows when they're open, not when it's convenient. That's why he gave up Shaq's supporting cast for a run at the 2006 title. That's why he's been willing to blow up rosters before he's done. This dance, he believes in it. The question is whether this particular dance has the right music. The Heat would also land its biggest star since Jimmy Butler, who led the team to 2 NBA Finals appearances, yet without a title. 2 finals, no ring. That's the wound that hasn't healed in Miami. Butler took them to the dance twice, and they came home empty-handed. And now Riley is betting that Giannis is the piece Butler wasn't the player who can take them over the top instead of just close to it. The argument makes sense. Giannis is better than Butler was at his peak. Giannis is a different kind of force, 2 MVPs, a champion, Defensive Player of the Year. The combination of skills he brings is unmatched, but Butler was a perfect fit for how Miami played. The Heat struggled to shoot consistently during the Jimmy Butler era, as the lack of spacing was evident, and he still took them to the finals twice. He fit the culture. He fit the defensive identity. He fit the way Erik Spoelstra likes to run half-court offense. Giannis isn't Butler. Giannis is bigger, more dominant, more physical, but fitting into Spoelstra's system, that's a genuine question. Spoelstra runs a motion, offense that relies on shooters relocating and catching in rhythm. Giannis doesn't catch in rhythm. He catches and attacks. That's a different system. Trade rumors have run rampant over the past few months, and with the official offseason quickly approaching, speculation about Giannis's future, whether it's with the Heat, the Celtics, or another team, has reached a boiling point. And somewhere in that boiling point, the basketball conversation has gotten louder than the transaction conversation. It's no longer just about will the deal happen. It's about what kind of team exists on the other side. And those two questions are pulling in different directions. While it might seem the Bucks' asking price is outrageous, one reporter highlighted the unprecedented nature of the franchise trading its 10-time All-Star, arguing that perhaps only Shaquille O'Neal's trade from the Lakers to the Heat in 2004 is a comparable scenario. And that Shaq comparison is worth sitting with. When Shaq came to Miami, the Heat also gave up youth and picks and depth, and for a year or two, they looked like a mess. Spacing problems, role player shortages, Shaq's age becoming a factor sooner than expected. Then they won a ring in 2006 because Dwyane Wade became one of the best players on earth at exactly the right moment. The dream scenario for Miami is that this trade has a 2006 postscript that Bam takes a leap, that the supporting cast gels around Giannis in ways nobody predicted, that Spoelstra does what Spoelstra always does and figures out the system. Bam loves to play from the elbows, and that can help open driving lanes for Giannis. Both Bam and Giannis are great playmakers for their positions, and watching these two in transition together could be scary. It could be, in an optimistic scenario, these two find a rhythm that the doubters couldn't see from the outside. But 2006 also had Shaquille O'Neal in his final dominant season and Dwyane Wade rising to transcendence. The Heat need something equivalent. They need someone to step up. And right now, after shipping out Herro, Ware, Jaquez, and the rest, who is that someone? Who is the player who fills the role that Wade filled in 2006? That's the unanswered question at the heart of everything, because the deal might get done, the trade might happen, and the harder work, building a championship caliber team around Giannis in Bam's shadow, begins the morning after. The draft is here. The deadline the Bucks set for themselves lands tonight. And as of this morning, the Heat and Bucks are making significant progress towards a Giannis trade being finished. Milwaukee and Miami are haggling over inclusions of unprotected future picks and all of their prospects, with the Pistons appearing to be involved as a facilitator for Tyler Herro. Progress. Real. Documented progress. That's a different word than speculation. That's two front offices at the table, arguing over the fine print. ESPN's Bobby Marks confirmed. When you look at Giannis, it's the superstar checklist of 3 things. Miami has a win-now player, and then it's the draft. Picks. I do think Miami right now has the best package out there. Best package. Preferred destination. Progress. In talks, Detroit in as a 3rd team. Everything is pointing toward a deal getting done. And if it does, the real story begins. Because the deal is just the opening act. Building around Giannis is the show. Could Bam and Giannis thrive together on the Miami Heat? Breaking down the concerns, defensive upside, transition offense, and why the pairing could make Miami a contender in the East. That's been the central question swirling through the basketball world for weeks, and the answer is genuinely split. There's a version of this that works. There's a version where it doesn't, and the difference between those 2 outcomes is razor thin. Let's start with the version where it works. That would make Adebayo and Giannis a dangerous duo in the front court, as spacing concerns could be easily relieved. The argument here is that Bam's 3-point development, even at 31.8%, represents real growth, and another full offseason of work could push him toward the 35% threshold that keeps defenses honest. If Bam hits 35 to 36% from 3 next season, the defense can no longer simply sag off him every time Giannis attacks. That changes everything. With the potential of Giannis's gravity, Adebayo could see better, more open looks if his shooting continues to hold up next season. Gravity. That's Giannis's superpower at 31. He's so dominant in the lane. Defenses have to make a choice. Send help and leave shooters open, or play him one-on-one and watch him score 30. In Milwaukee, they consistently chose to help, and the open shooters were reliable enough to punish that choice. In Miami, the shooters who punish it are gone, unless Bam's 3-point shot becomes reliable enough to create that same dilemma. Giannis thrived in lineups with a sharpshooting center. These players spaced the floor for Giannis, allowing him to work with space and dominate single coverages. With the potential of Giannis's gravity, Adebayo could see better, more open looks. If his shooting continues, it's circular and it requires Bam to be something he isn't quite yet. But the direction is right. He's moving toward it. The offseason question is whether he can accelerate that movement enough to be the Lopez-level spacer Giannis needs in year 1. Giannis is one of the best transition players in the NBA, and his ability to leverage his strength and speed to get downhill will open up the floor for the Heat in a way they haven't seen since LeBron James. Bam is one of the most athletic bigs in the NBA, and pairing him with Giannis would give Miami constant opportunities to push the pace after defensive stops. That's the version of this pairing that has Miami fans salivating end to end, full court, no defense set. Giannis with a head of steam, Bam running the lane, guards spread on the wings. That's as unstoppable as basketball gets. Transition offense covers a multitude of sins. Teams that play fast, that get out in transition, that score before the defense can set up. Those teams don't need perfect half-court spacing. They score early, put the opponent on their heels, force them to play catch-up basketball. Giannis is excellent at generating transition offense, which is crucial for fast break opportunities, and Bam's athleticism fits that identity. The 2 of them running the floor together after every missed shot, every steal, every made basket. That's a version of this team that genuinely frightens opponents. The defensive floor is equally compelling. A Giannis Adebayo duo would provide elite versatility, defense, and rim protection, as both players are clearly all-defense caliber. 2 all-defense caliber players. In the same front court, 2 players who can guard 1 through 5 positions between them. A defensive foundation so deep that opponents would need a perfect offensive game plan just to stay in the game. In the NBA, defense translates to the playoffs in a way that regular season scoring doesn't. Teams built around defensive anchors can win, even when the offense stalls, and this duo would be the most imposing defensive frontcourt in the East. But here's where the Garnett-Pierce analysis keeps pulling the conversation back to earth. Garnett and Pierce question whether pairing the 2-time MVP with Adebayo in Miami would actually push the franchise into title contention. Not into the playoffs, into title contention. That's a specific bar, because getting to the playoffs with Giannis is nearly automatic. Getting past the second round requires more. Getting to the finals and winning it requires everything going right simultaneously. And Garnett, who won a ring with the Celtics by being part of the right construction, not just having the best player, understands what that everything looks like. Both Garnett and Pierce pointed to a more established team, with Cleveland and Evan Mobley floated as a cleaner. Alternative, Cleveland, Mobley. Because Mobley shoots threes at a reliable clip. Because Mobley spaces the floor in a way that Bam currently doesn't. Because Cleveland has a different composition around its front court, one that doesn't create the same spacing crisis that the Bam pairing does in Miami. That's the alternative that KG is pointing at. Not better city, not better market, better fit, better basketball construction. And yet many reports have stated Giannis would be open to committing long-term to the Heat, but not to a team like Portland. He wants Miami, whatever better. Fit means on paper, the man himself has a preference. And preferences matter in modern NBA free agency. A player who wants to be somewhere commits to making it work. A player who ends up somewhere they didn't choose, like Carmelo in New York, which was his first choice, can spend years trying to will something into existence that the roster construction doesn't support. But at least Carmelo was in a city he wanted. Giannis in Miami starts from a motivated place. That counts for something. Giannis reportedly prefers Miami, but he has to remember the cautionary tale of Carmelo Anthony, who jockeyed for a trade to the Knicks and ended up as the centerpiece of a roster that didn't have enough talent left to compete. He got to the destination he was hoping for and then spent years on a middling team that couldn't put the right pieces around him. That parallel is uncomfortable for Heat fans, but it's honest. Wanting to be somewhere doesn't solve the roster math. Wanting to be somewhere doesn't create shooters out of thin air. The city doesn't space the floor. The players do. So what does Miami need to do to avoid the Carmelo fate? They need to be absolutely ruthless in the post-deal roster construction. Every minimum contract, every trade exception, every player acquired through the buyout market, it all has to be oriented around perimeter shooting. They need 4 or 5 38+% three-point shooters surrounding Giannis and Bam. They need the kind of perimeter that dares defenses to collapse on the front court, and they need it without Herro, without Ware, without Jaquez. They're building from a stripped foundation. That's why it's essential that the Heat fill out their bench with as much front court shooting as possible. Not just bench shooting, front court shooting specifically, because you can have guards who can shoot all day. But if Bam is at center and Giannis is at power forward and neither of them is a threat from the arc, the defense loads the lane regardless of who else is on the floor. You need the shooting to come from the bigs, or at minimum from wing-sized players who can credibly threaten the three, while Giannis operates inside. That's a specific profile. It's not easy to find, and Miami has limited resources to find it with. Strap in, because if the time leading up to the trade deadline had a lot of Giannis buzz, the next few weeks could feature even more rumors and intel on his future, which at this point looks more up in the air than ever before. The draft is happening. The deadline is now. And whatever deal or non-deal emerges from tonight is going to reshape the next 5 years of the Eastern Conference landscape. If Miami gets Giannis, they become a team everyone has to game plan for. If Boston gets him, the dynasty talk gets louder. If Minnesota lands him, the West has a new contender. The ripple effects go everywhere. A deal for the teams would give Giannis a fresh start after spending the last 13 seasons in Milwaukee, where he won his first and only NBA championship so far in 2021. 13 seasons, 1 ring. For a player of his caliber, 1 ring feels like unfinished business. He's watched LeBron collect titles across multiple franchises. He's watched players he's dominated in the regular season get rings while he's gone home in May. The hunger is real. The motivation is documented, and that hunger is precisely why he's willing to leave the only NBA city he's ever known. Meanwhile, the Bucks will be forced to rebuild from the young assets they would get from the trade and through the NBA draft, where they pick twice in the lottery slots. Milwaukee enters a new era. The Giannis era ends. Whatever they get back, Herro's replacement in Detroit's facilitation. Where's upside? The lottery picks, they start over. It's the kind of organizational reset that takes 5 to 7 years to climb out of. The Bucks know that. Haslam knows that. But the alternative, keeping a 31-year-old superstar who may want out regardless, is worse. So they make the move and begin again. For the Heat, the basketball questions that Garnett and Pierce raised don't disappear the moment the trade is announced. Some fans and analysts have questioned the fit between Bam and Giannis on the court. The spacing on the floor could become an issue. The way the game is played today, having two stars who are not elite shooters could make it more difficult for the rest of the roster to create offense. Those questions show up in November, when they're playing a back-to-back in Cleveland and the offense stalls for 3 quarters. They show up in March when they're trying to hold on to playoff seeding. They show up in May when they're down 2-1 in a series and need a response. The fit between Bam and Giannis may not be perfect, but the rule is you trade for a superstar and figure out the rest later. Erik Spoelstra is, by most accounts, one of the 3 or 4 best coaches alive. He figured out LeBron-Wade Bosh. He figured out the Butler-Bam Herro combination. He figured out a team with no stars winning a playoff series against the 1 seed. If there's a coach anywhere in the world who can design a system around 2 paint-dominant all-stars, it's Spoelstra. The coaching question is the one variable that actually breaks in Miami's favor and makes the skeptics' concerns less dire. Adebayo has taken a massive leap in terms of shooting in the past season. Last offseason, he expanded his game to include 3-point shooting, a development heavily encouraged by the Heat organization to diversify their offense. That development didn't happen by accident. It happened because the Heat coaching staff identified the need and prioritized it in every drill, every film session, every individual workout. That same machine will now turn toward making Bam effective alongside Giannis. They'll find the angles, the pick-and-roll timings, the transition reads. Trust the process. Trust the coach. That's Riley's bet. Though an amazing basketball player with a great basketball mind, Kevin Garnett misses the mark when he talks about the Heat and Giannis. Garnett believes Giannis to Miami is a Milwaukee 2.0 situation. I don't like him in Miami. I think if he goes from Milwaukee to Miami, that's a similar situation, he said. A Milwaukee 2.0. Same player, same ceiling, different city. That's the nightmare scenario. And Garnett, who has seen championship construction from the inside, who won a title and knows how it's built, his skepticism isn't casual. It's earned. But so is Riley's belief in the other direction. The counter to Garnett's Milwaukee 2.0 argument is simple. Giannis in Milwaukee was Giannis carrying an entire franchise. In Miami, he has a Bam Adebayo already in place, a legitimate two-way all-star who has never required Giannis to do everything alone. The burden gets shared, and a shared burden for a player who has carried Milwaukee alone for years might be exactly the thing that unlocks a different version of Giannis. A fresher Giannis, a more efficient Giannis, a Giannis who doesn't have to will his team to 47 wins by himself. But that counter requires Bam to be that co-star effectively. It requires the spacing to get solved. It requires Spoelstra's system to flex in ways it hasn't had to before. Miami making a move for Giannis could leave the roster in a dire situation, all due to one metric: spacing. Everything comes back to spacing. Every argument, every concern, every alternative scenario, spacing is the word. And the question of whether Miami solves the spacing problem or simply papers over it with the belief that talent conquers all is the question that will define the next chapter of this franchise's history. Here's what we know for certain as of right now. By all accounts, the Heat should be considered the leaders to make a trade for Giannis, as his time with the Bucks appears to be over. With Giannis eyeing Miami and the Heat's trade package, representing the strongest collection of assets, it is clear which team is closest to acquiring one of the game's best players. All the reporting points the same direction. Miami is the frontrunner. The package is the best one available. The player wants to be there. The Bucks and Heat are making significant progress towards a Giannis trade being finished. Progress, fine print, unprotected picks versus protected ones. Who goes to Detroit? Whether Giannis is included or not. These are the details being hammered out right now in back rooms and on burner phones and in executive suite hallways. The basketball world is watching. Every other front office has their notifications on, because wherever Giannis lands tonight or tomorrow, the Eastern Conference realigns. For now, one thing has become increasingly clear. Miami is not merely exploring a Giannis trade. The Heat appear to have multiple versions of an offer prepared, each featuring a different combination of young talent designed to appeal to Milwaukee. Whether one of those iterations is enough to satisfy the Bucks remains the unanswered question. Multiple versions, multiple scenarios. Riley playing chess on 3 boards simultaneously. That's the man. That's the method. And it might just work. The broader picture for the Heat, regardless of whether this deal gets done tonight or falls apart at the last second, is that the franchise has reached a fork. One road is Giannis, the big swing, the win-now bet, the all-in move that strips the roster and bets everything on one player's brilliance. The other road is the slower path. Keep the young core, let Giannis and Ware develop. Wait for the right deal on the right terms. Riley has never been a slow path guy. He didn't build this franchise by waiting. He built it by attacking windows when they open. And the window is open. Giannis is available. He's 31, not 35. His prime isn't fading, it's present. The spacing concerns are real, but not insurmountable. The roster that remains after the deal will be thin, but not empty. Norman Powell can shoot, Spoelstra can scheme, Bam can evolve, and Giannis himself, motivated, hungry, desperate for that second ring, would arrive in Miami with something to prove. Not just to the doubters, to Milwaukee, to the league, to himself. There's no more dangerous player than a champion who believes he's been abandoned by his franchise and has a point to make. That's the story that hasn't been written yet. The deal that might happen tonight. The roster that gets rebuilt around 2 giants. The coach who has to find the system that makes it work. The spacing problem that has to get solved somehow, somewhere, by somebody. Giannis and Bam and Pat Riley and Eric Spoelstra staring down a gauntlet in the Eastern Conference, trying to do what Carmelo couldn't and what the Butler era almost did. Miami's been close before. They've tasted the finals and come home empty. And maybe, just maybe, the biggest player in the game. Walking through their door is the thing that finally changes that. New Miami Heat trade package for Giannis unveiled. Latest offer details, basketnews.com. New Miami Heat Giannis Antetokounmpo trade package revealed, heavy.com. Kevin Garnett, Paul Pierce have a better Giannis Antetokounmpo trade fit than Miami Heat. Dallas Hoops Journal. Miami Heat or Boston Celtics. Predicting Giannis Antetokounmpo's landing spot. Yahoo Sports. Miami Heat projected to trade 4 stars, 3 draft picks for Giannis Antetokounmpo. Heavy.com. Miami Heat's 3 different Giannis trade packages revealed. Heavy.com. Report. Miami Heat receive alarming update on Bucks' demand for Giannis. Heavy.com. Heat linked to 4-team Giannis Antetokounmpo-centered trade. Yahoo Sports. NBA insiders reveal Heat trade package for Giannis Antetokounmpo. Yahoo Sports. Miami Heat receive major report on Giannis Antetokounmpo trade pursuit. Heavy.com. Crucial statistic reveals Giannis Antetokounmpo a perfect fit for Miami Heat. Heavy.com. The Heat should not trade Tyler Herro for Giannis Antetokounmpo, the lead yard barker. How would Bam Adebayo and Giannis Antetokounmpo fit together on the Miami Heat? Yard barker. Projecting the Heat's starting lineup and rotation after a fantasy Giannis trade. Fan-sided. Report Miami Heat aren't willing to empty the vault for Giannis. Yard barker. No one is addressing obvious concern regarding Giannis's fit with Heat behind the buck pass. How would Bam Adebayo and Giannis Antetokounmpo fit together on the Miami Heat? Sports Illustrated. Miami Heat receives bad news as Bucks set unrealistic asking price for Giannis. Heavy.com. Miami Heat willing to give up former All-Star, several young assets for Giannis. Heavy.com. Miami Heat receive encouraging update in Giannis trade pursuit. Basketnews.com. Kevin Garnett gives his take on Giannis to Miami. Sports Illustrated. Miami Heat get major Giannis Antetokounmpo trade update after new insider report. Heavy.com. Miami Heat projected to trade 4 key players, 3 picks for Giannis Antetokounmpo. Heavy.com. Bucks asking price for Giannis Antetokounmpo labeled unrealistic as Heat-led pursuit. Dallas Hoops Journal. Could the Heat bring Duncan Robinson back in a deal for Giannis Antetokounmpo? Sports Illustrated. https://www.yesi.com's NBA/Heat on see the possible return of Duncan Robinson to the Miami Heat 01KV and EB21T.